Welcome back, everyone, to the Shock Absorber podcast. Thank you for joining us. It's very exciting to have you with us. And one person with me today in his puffy jacket is Tim. Welcome, Tim. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Joel. It is nice to be here. My puffy jacket.
You. Puffy, your Puff. Puff the Magic Dragon jacket.
Introducing my kids to Puff the Magic Dragon the other day.
Did you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How did that go down?
First, Zali just thought I was weird, and then I explained the drug reference, and then she just thought I was weirder. So it was one of those conversations you have as a parent, where they're, particularly with teenagers, they just look at you and roll their eyes, go, okay, yeah, cool, Dad, and walked away. I'm trying to do an educational activity here, so you've got cultural touch points to refer back to, but no, it didn't work.
Dear. I think Puff the Magic Dragon is. It was at the start or end of a video that I used to watch of something else. That's the only real time I've got it. But it had the song and it's like, Puff the Magic Dragon. That's all I remember.
Actually, I think we had a board book. I have to go back and find it. Yeah, anyway.
Okay. Well, we should say that we interrupt normal programming because you're only here with me today. But that's because Stu is feeling quite unwell.
He is, unfortunately.
So we'll let him get better. And so we're going to interrupt our service teams mini-series. That was the word I was trying to think of. We're interrupting our mini-series on service teams and particular communications this week to really just sit down and chat. We thought we may as well give the people what they want, give them an episode, and we're going to talk about just things that we've done this before, but talk about things that we've been interested in this week and been thinking about. And we've got a bit of a list here. We might not get through all of it, but the first one starts with naked Germans.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. That's not inclling you because you've got the German heritage.
No. I've got my puffy jacket on.
Don't Germans wear puffy jackets?
Well, not when they're naked.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I can play that one.
No, so I really love to follow on Substack a particular German historian, Katya, and she's written a couple of excellent books, one on East Germany, which I really, really liked.
Oh, yeah, you have mentioned that before.
Yeah, and another one, Blood and Iron, which is about the Germany leading up to and during the First World War.
Yep.
And so the second, is that the Second Reich? Yeah, the Second Reich. And then she's just released the date for the release of her Weimar Republic book, which would be great because they'll kind of fill in the gaps in between those two.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that comes out in May next year. So
they've got great covers.
They're excellent books.
Great.
Yeah. No, it's well respected. So she's got a Substack called Zeitgeist, and it's part of my just trying to, I've said before, trying to catch up on, okay, so what does it mean for me to have German heritage? And I've never been to Germany, have never visited. My dad didn't talk a lot about Germany and what it was like to be German in Australia. And so I think I've kind of hit that middle age bit where you kind of wonder, I want to know more about my heritage. And so this is just a long, in my spare time when I'm not reading for work or study, reading about Germany is kind of where I find a lot of interest. And so Katya's Substack is excellent. It's called Zeitgeist. So a recent article this week was on naked Germans and why naturalism is still going strong.
Oh, in Germany?
In Germany, yeah. So naturalism has a whole history. So, Did
you learn anything?
Well, I mean, I learned about naturalism in Germany. So public nudity has a long tradition in Germany, she writes. So much so there's a specific name for it, which is, here we go, let's give you this a try, Freikörperkultur, which is free body culture.
Oh, all right, yep.
So largely emerged as a backlash against industrialization, urbanization, and modernity in the 19th century. So there you go. There's a bit of fun for you. Probably don't Google that. Be careful how you find out more about.
Go via the Substack.
You go via the Substack, and you won't get anything that is not safe for work. So, but yes,
both liberating and healthy.
Well,
to
apparently
those that adhere to
that's the thought. Okay. So I don't know if I'll partake anytime soon, but yeah, that was on my reading list. How about you, Joel? What's something you've been into?
I'm just looking at the article. It says they often ask, "What is it with Germans and public nudity?"
Yeah,
and that is a very good question. I would say it's Germans, as in I wouldn't say it's Germans, as in all Germans, who enjoy being naked. In a recent survey from YouGov, only a quarter of West Germans and a third of East Germans said they felt comfortable in settings of public nudity.
Which is still a very high number, I would have thought.
It does, yes.
I mean, 25% of people saying they're comfortable in places of public nudity.
And then she says, yet only 41% said they'd never been naked in any of the settings offered by the survey, which range from sauna, beach, hiking trail, and cruise ship. 41% is...
Who haven't
That
been?
means, yeah. So it's
59%.
59% have? Wow.
She goes on to talk about there's a new exhibition at a history museum. And there at nighttime, there's two different settings. There's one where you go clothed, and then there's ones that you can book in for the nudist.
To go naked.
One, and the naturalist ones have all sold out. And the clothed ones still have heaps of space available. So
read into that what you will.
Yeah.
For goodness sake.
yeah.
That's very surprising. Well, there you go.
So there we go. So that's me learning about a little bit of my German heritage through Katya. So thank you, Katya.
Well, I had a question about Katya's book, Blood and Iron. Does it talk about why they thought it was cool for German dudes to have scars on their face?
Oh, actually, I haven't read that one yet. It's still on my bookshelf. It is her first one, but I haven't yet got to that on my pile of books to read. So, but I did read the East Germany one, and that one was brilliant.
Really?
Really like trying to understand what East Germany was like during those years that it existed.
Behind the Iron Curtain.
Behind the Iron Curtain, yeah. And she is like Angela Merkel, the recent chancellor. Katya grew up in East Germany, so it's kind of her story as well. And so yeah, she talks a lot about her father and the influence there, but also I think she's about my age, so she's like early 40s, I think, or late 30s, early 40s. So which meant that the wall came down in her childhood. So
yes, okay.
There's also that experience of very earliest memories in East Germany, but she's kind of her formative years have been in the attempt of reconstruction and what does that look like, and so she writes a lot out of that kind of perspective. And yeah, if you do follow her Substack, she'll often talk a bit about politics. She's not overly partisan, but she does write, as in like she doesn't strongly voice her own personal opinion, but she does write a lot trying to understand why, like the Alternative for Deutschland, the AfD party, which is the right wing party, has risen in prominence, and the complicated history that has and that is bringing up again for Germany, and for to have a sort of a right party, far right, depending on your commentator. So she writes a lot about that kind of stuff. Again, without trying, she doesn't give too much away. She's trying to be not neutral, but she's not trying to push an agenda. She's just trying to notice as a journalist and a historian.
I remember, so I went to Germany in 2006, and talking about the wall coming down and the reconstruction, it was noticeable how much of new construction was happening in the east part of Berlin, of East Berlin rather than West Berlin. I thought that was kind of fascinating to see. But I really liked Berlin.
Okay.
I feel like Berlin could be a city that I've always had a bit of a dream to spend like a number of months in one European city. Okay. I think Berlin is up there, higher up on the list. Yeah, but interesting. We'll see if that ever happens, eventuates.
We'll go over. I want to spend a number of... I mean, I'd love to spend a whole year in Germany, just visiting different places, finding some naturalists. No. Again, it's part of my heritage that I don't have a strong connection to, having not been there. But yeah.
It's similar to my wife's family history from Latvia. She's like, we want to go back to, at least go to Riga, the capital of Latvia, and just kind of understand that there's this, it's like kind of what you've talked about before, that collective history and trying to understand where you've come from. But my family, I don't have any
you do
knowledge and desire to go back to Scotland, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, not really.
What do you think that is?
Yeah, I was just trying to think of that at the time. I don't know. I just don't think there is any So my wife Karen, her grandma came over during World War II. Like, there's a story.
Right.
I don't know what the story is. Did we just come over as criminals? I don't know. Like my family, I'm not really sure what the story would be. So maybe that's why. I don't know.
Yeah.
The collective history hasn't been shared with me.
Yes. Not knowing the story, I think, is significant. As in, like, you don't have something to then trace back and follow. I was at a funeral this week for my great aunt, so my grandfather's sister.
Right.
And so my mum was kind of running us through the family tree again as we drove up to the funeral. And I think I heard more of the story then than I'd heard forever. They're not part of the family that we spend a lot of time with. I think I last saw my auntie Pat at my wedding, which was 20 years ago. So it's not someone we spend a lot of time with. But again, now, sort of as Mum was telling the story, I'm like, oh, well, this is, now that I'm hearing the story, I'm kind of, my curiosity has been piqued on these things, and the sheep farms that they had out at Ningen, and then Mudgee, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, you fill in the gaps and you start to be a bit more curious, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe as you get older too.
Yes, yeah.
When it's like you're almost more in charge of your identity and kind of whether you desire to dig deeper or not. Whereas as a child, you're not. You kind of, your parents are a big part of shaping that identity.
Yes, yeah. You have the ability to question yet. You sort of have to work through adolescence and into young adulthood to start to open that up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's stick on the German theme though, because you've been consuming content on Wagner as well, the German composer.
Yeah, so I was telling this to my family the other day, and I was like, "Why did you start there?" I think I've picked up somewhere that to understand Germany is to understand Wagner is to understand Germany and vice versa.
Okay.
In that he's very controversial in that he was a raging anti-Semite.
Oh, really?
Write that in. He's Hitler's favourite composer. His music was used right throughout the Nazi regime. And so for that reason, obviously, he gets cancelled a lot. But also he's universally recognised as one of the most complex and beautiful and absolute creative geniuses in the world of classical music. And so I think in terms of the understanding Germany and understanding Germanness, that mixture of really genius level composing, grand vision. He basically redesigned the whole idea of opera. He refused to call his operas, he called them music dramas. Okay. He, rather than talking about histories or real life events, he went back into German mythology and all this kind of stuff. He wrote this enormous epic called The Ring Cycle, which is actually 4 really long music dramas, each one between 2.5 or 4 hours each. Wow. And there's 4 of them in a row. And it's picking up on all of these ancient German and Nordic traditions about this ring of magical power. And it's the same kind of things that Tolkien then uses to write The Lord of the Rings. So same kind of, there's a magic ring and it rules, you can rule the world if you have it, and it makes you disappear, and all these kinds of things is all built into this. And so, so he's an absolute musical genius. And yet at the same time, obviously, really problematic in terms of raging anti-Semite, and
he wrote virulently anti-Semitic essays.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like it's by no means a secret, or he wasn't even trying to hide how much he hated Jews, and so again, a lot of that ideology comes out in his writing and even in some of his music dramas, which gets used for the purposes of Hitler and the Nazi regime. And so one of the big questions, I think the big meta questions around Germany is, how do you have a country of such high culture also create the greatest atrocity in the 20th century through the Holocaust? And the question is then, how do those fit together? And so I guess as part of as I think about what does it mean to be German, what does it mean to have this as part of my heritage, how do you make sense of these competing forces, that there's high creativity, high drama, high culture, and at the same time you've got this raging ideology in the background to moderate ground and then obviously foregrounded. And what does it mean to have both of those in the heritage of my people, of my nationality, I suppose, in that sense. And so, yes, it's been fascinating so it was a great course that I got through the Sutherland Library app. Shout out to Hoopla. Thank you for being able to borrow it for free.
Thank you.
So 40-something hours of content.
Well,
but yeah, it was great. It was in terms of understanding Wagner, his times, his ideology, his history, and his music dramas. So
it's fascinating that well, not fascinating. I always have wondered, like, as I think I put it on the Chip Lunch podcast. There's a podcast I listened to called Martyr Made, which was talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict and where it started, and it talks about how this line of anti-Semitism ran through a lot of Europe, and a lot of the reason that Israel as a state or a nation was created or they attempted to create it was because of obviously the persecution that Jews were experiencing. But in particular, Eastern Europe and Russia, where they would just literally hunt Jews, and then it just sounds like it's obviously in other areas too. I find it just so not to be too much, I find it just very sobering to know that was the case.
Yeah.
And then so he writes, someone who's a musical genius, like you're saying, Wagner was, but he's writing stuff like that. Isn't it funny, like with our heroes, a lot of geniuses, that they're always very flawed.
Absolutely, yeah. Which we shouldn't. We should expect as Christians, because we know that we have both the sinful nature and the created nature in us at the same time. So we should expect of each person to have contributive, beautiful elements to their person, because everyone is created in the image of God. Everyone has been created with purpose and meaning to create and create culture, to contribute. Everyone has creativity. We've talked about that before, how that doesn't mean creative arts. It means that everyone has a way in which they can contribute to the flourishing of society. That's part of our createdness, and everyone is also fallen. And so we should expect that everyone we meet, every hero, every part of history has both of those elements in it, which I think makes us wise to avoiding what I've heard a couple of people talk about as, black hat, white hat take on political issues, particularly, or historical issues, as in, like, there's always good guys and bad guys.
Yep.
And I want to go all in with the good guys, or I want to claim the good guys for myself. We talked about Bonhoeffer, I think, a few weeks back, and that idea that people want to claim Bonhoeffer for themselves. We see him as the good guy. But everyone is complex. Everyone is complicated. I remember talking to a guy at church who was wrestling with, well, what do we do with Luther? Because he had all these, Protestant Reformation, all these wonderful things, but also towards the end of his life also wrote some really horrible anti-Semitic things. And I'm having these conversations. This guy was having a bit of a crisis of what do I do with the writings of Luther. And I just smiled and said, oh man, I'm German. I just, you just kind of live with it, right? Because this is it. Like, my heritage is one that is caught up with Luther and Nazism and Beethoven and Wagner. Mozart and Wagner. And so all of these things. And so to be able to be at a place where you look at your own, sort of concentric circles, you can start with yourself. You should expect to see good, createdness and contributive purpose and fallenness in yourself, in your friends, in your colleagues. And then, you keep expanding out into your culture, your country, your political ideas. And it matters in the way that we then read about, conflicts like the Israeli-Palestine. And a lot of the commentary is highly partisan one way or the other. Yeah. As well, no, Israel can do no wrong. We must support everything that they do because they're the white hats. Or you're on the other side and say, no, everything they do is atrocious. We must do everything we can to support the Palestinians. And It's the ability to be able to say, well, actually, maybe they're complex, maybe their leaders are complex, maybe the actions that they take are complex in a complex world. That doesn't get as much clicks and doesn't get as much traction in the media. But it shouldn't surprise us that even the side that we would most align with can also do horrible things. Right. And the side that we don't align with can also do things that are right. And being able to hold both of those things together is really key, I think, in able to understand world politics and current politics and those kinds of things.
And possibly, I wonder, maybe only possible when you live in the light of the gospel as well. Like not fully. I'm not saying you can only do that only if you're a Christian, but I think because you know that Jesus is this leveler for everyone, that it changes the kind of level that you're interpreting those events or those ideas through the lens of the gospel.
It's your big meta picture of what is humanity.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah,
certainly. I mean, Judeo-Christian, I suppose, if you're talking about Genesis, because the Jews would have a very similar anthropology at that level. And then, of course, where Christianity diverges is that the ultimate humanity is seen in the person of Jesus. And so that gives us both the idea of redemption, that redemption is possible, and also that we're looking forward to consummation. We're looking forward to new creation and when everything will be made new. And so that idea of creation, fall, redemption, consummation is a fairly typical way of explaining I guess the grand vision, the grand story of the Bible. And yes, being able to apply that then to the way you read news, the way you consume content, the way you think about yourself, your friends, your colleagues, is really important.
And I think there's also this element, I think you're right about that, and I think there's this element of, you've talked a number of times about having a non-anxious presence about it too. And it is obviously built on the foundation that God is in charge of everything, and we know that he holds the world in his hands, and he is still working and doing it through people that may not even, like he's still working through people in their weakness. I remember Braden was preaching about that last weekend for us. And I was also thinking as you're speaking there about power as well, and Stu mentioned power, I think it was even last week, of that. How do we, if we were online, for example, what are we using? We do have a certain amount of power if we have an audience of any kind. Thank you to everyone that listens and watches the Shock Absorber. But there is a power to have influence over people there. And you were talking about there needs to be an accountability of knowing that what you're teaching and talking about is important and can influence people as well. So, yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, sometimes you get weighed down by the corruption of sin. And then there's also these moments, I think even what we're talking about there, that Wagner can still produce something extremely beautiful and compelling. Yeah. But he's extremely flawed and corrupted as well.
Yeah. And that's okay. We don't need to we can say how beautiful is this piece of music, this music drama, without therefore saying that his ideology was okay. And likewise, we can condemn his ideology without cancel culturing his music drama. So that's key as well. I think you'd be able to hold those two things in tension.
Yep.
Which brings you the whole thing of, is someone's conduct ever sufficient to stop listening to their music or whatever? I mean, that's a whole different conversation, I suppose. But it's kind of connected in that, could someone's conduct disqualify them from their art, I suppose?
Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are some times that I hold somebody like that, whatever it is, and it depends on whether I appreciate their art or what they produce. Is how long,
which is an emotive reaction,
yeah,
rather than a necessarily thought out one.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that's another thing we have to be careful of.
Yeah.
How do you again look at everything through a biblical lens like even we were talking about last week again, of what we're creating or what we're consuming is what we kind of think about in terms of lots of things. Sorry, I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Anyway, can we move? We'll move on.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I think we could spend a lot of time on this.
There's a few things I'm into. Tell us, you've been reading some Augustine.
Well, yeah, I have been. Shout out to my friend Lewis and a number of other guys who said it was half a week away, and he said we're going to read Augustine's Enchiridion, I think is how you pronounce it, which is ancient Greek for handbook, I believe, which is based on Epictetus wrote one, which I have not read. However, this one is written around 420 BC, I believe. And it's just a number of short readings each day about Augustine's thoughts, and basically based on some questions from someone who wrote to him by the name of Lawrence, and he is responding to a lot of those things. And I think, I have fallen off the wagon a little bit in terms of the doing the readings every day, so I'm a little bit behind everyone else. So anyone listening to this, I apologise that we haven't been keeping up in the chat with everyone. Ideally what I've done is like I'll do my Bible reading in the morning and then I'll read this after it. And because it's short, it's usually like 2 or 3 pages to read, so it's easy read. Well, easy, short length to read. But it's been really, I'm trying to get the right words. It's like, I think there's this ongoing fascination I have with the fact that like it was so long ago, and he is speaking about and writing about and grappling with and thinking about these gospel truths that happened even earlier. Is that right? That can't be right if it was 420 BC. I've got that
Not
wrong.
BC, AD.
No, because it would be after Jesus.
Yes.
Jesus. I apologise for that too. But it was written a long time ago. It must be 420 AD.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That'd be right.
And I don't know why, but it kind of helps me draw a line through where I am now to back then, that sin is still the same and Jesus is still the same. And it's been really fun and interesting and thought-provoking to do that. And then as we share stuff with each other about what we're getting out of it, it's just been really encouraging. And yeah, I don't know what else I'd say about that, but I've got Augustine's Confessions book, but I haven't read it yet. But now it makes me want to read his book. Yeah. And it's understandable why he was such a influential figure in that part of church history as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got an example of something you've read recently?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, maybe not an exact specific example, but our sermon series at church at the moment is the Apostles' Creed. And so many things that are coming out of the Enchiridion, like unintentionally from us, but really a parallel what we're talking about in the Apostles' Creed. And obviously the Apostles' Creed, I can't remember exactly when, but you can tell there is this, in reading Augustine, and then you see like the Creed and how that kind of developed, there was this thing of like there was a need for something like that.
Yeah.
And how important it is to clarify what the gospel is and the implications of the gospel.
Yep.
And I think that's why I've enjoyed it so much, is that noticeable that I have these growth stages in my faith when I am leading. That they happen a lot more often because I'm leading a Bible study or community group.
Yep, that makes sense.
And pair that with I try to take lots of notes from the sermon. One of the reasons is because I write the description for when we put that sermon out on the podcast. So I actually put them all into ChatGPT and it summarizes it for me. Obviously, I read it before I post it. Don't worry, guys. But those kind of three things intertwining with each other have, and especially, and I want to give a lot of credit to Braden last week on his sermon, which was on a Saturday night, on the portion of the Apostles' Creed, which is conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, has really helped me to grasp more fully the divine and human nature of Jesus. And I mean, I always believed he was fully man and fully God, but this is just, there's so much more depth to the fact that he is. And then I just read, I think it must have been chapter 11 or 12 of Augustine's Enchiridion, and it was talking about exactly the same thing, and he kind of saying that it is almost impossible to grasp that. But the way that Braden preached it was like this dual nature of Jesus. And then that's what part of the Apostles' Creed is, to talk about that and to clarify that. Because people were saying back in those times, like, oh, is he? And is Jesus just fully man and he's kind of related to God and those kind of things? But all those things combined, was like, nope, he's both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. My daughter was doing a assignment for her Christian studies this week on the Trinity.
Yes, so that's another thing it's helping me with, yes.
Yeah, so we're trying to, first it was trying to get her to care. She's like, oh, the more I think about it, the more confusing it is. Why should I bother thinking?
That's where I used to be at, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, no, I understand that. But I showed her the Lutheran satire video. We should put a link to this. It's classic. It's about 10, 12 years old.
Okay.
Kind of original YouTube type thing. About these two cartoon Irish people talking to St. Patrick, trying to get him to explain the concept of the Trinity. He keeps trying to use analogies, and they say, oh, that's a bad analogy, Patrick. It's hilarious. So you use that, and that got her a little bit over the line of thinking about it. But part of it was trying to talk to her about, so why does this actually matter? Like, if we understand it or not. Even if it's not understandable, why try? And then why does it matter if we have the right idea of God or not? And just trying to explain that, I mean, firstly, if we're to know someone in a relationship, we want to actually know them the right way. Like, we want to have the right idea of who they are.
That's good.
I mean, it's, you don't want to have a relationship with someone under false pretenses, like you don't understand who they are. So the way that Jesus reveals himself and who he is matters. So we talked a lot about that. But then also folded in some of the things we've been talking about in our sermon, and she would have heard Braden's sermon last week, and I think Stu's the week before. The importance of Jesus, who is God, also being human, for the impact that has on his ability to be both the high priest and the sacrifice. We read through Hebrews last week.
Hebrews, especially.
And so if he was only God or only human, he couldn't actually perform that role as an atonement for sin.
Yep.
And so we talked a bit about that as well, and the importance of and the impact that has on our understanding, therefore, of Trinity and who God is. And she had to, it was all based on John 1, her assignment. So, yeah.
Which is cool, because we did John pretty recently too.
We did, yeah.
Which again, it's kind of added to my understanding of that. But it's maybe a little bit of a frustration for me as a Christian, and is that I want to grasp God more fully.
Okay.
However, sometimes there are things so far out of reach that you never will.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what you call that, but I think because I would like, if I'm going to, sometimes if it's something worldly, I'm like, I'm going to understand this, and it might be something that I'll grapple in my mind for 2 or 3 years, and then I'm like, oh, it's about this, and then I'll move on. But you can't do that with God.
No, I mean, we can grow in our understanding of him.
Yeah.
But we can never grasp him. And I think there's a grace in that as well.
Maybe I'm missing that.
Well, no, as in, if we were to fully understand God, then it's easy to put him in the box of a subject that I've now mastered.
Yeah, that's
rather than as a relationship with someone who is beyond me. And so if we were to fully understand, if God was fully understandable, we wouldn't need him. So the fact that he's beyond our comprehension is actually a grace to us to keep coming back to him, I think, in relationship, to not master him and therefore not require to be with him. So I think that's an important part of understand. Like, But that doesn't mean that we should give up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit like holiness, all right? Like we're not going to be holy perfectly. We're not going to be pure and perfect this side of new creation. But that doesn't mean give up either. And so we're working towards, with the help of the Spirit, to be displaying the fruits of the Spirit, not the fruits of the flesh. But our inability to get to holiness is also a bit of a grace, because if I could master holiness without relying on God, then I wouldn't need God. So there's an aspect where it keeps us intellectually and obedience level humble to not ever quite achieve and never quite get there.
Because what did you say? If we could fully grasp God, then we wouldn't need him. Wow, that's pretty cool. Because that makes me think also of what you were saying there of Lee Murray in our Talks a Week Away.
Yep.
And how he said sanctification obviously starts with us being justified by Jesus dying on the cross, but then it's the relationship with him is the next part, and we need to keep going back to the relationship rather than trying to be performative to be more sanctified. And then what was the other thing that he said? Oh, sometimes we are trying to be the person we think we need to be, so we're trying to do it ourselves.
Right, yeah.
But he said by sanctification we are actually we're genuinely, through the relationship with God, becoming the person that he made us to be.
Yes.
And that was a great flip the script moment for me. It was that sometimes I'm like, I'm Christian, but I have this identity in other things, and I'm working on that. And maybe I'm not even intentionally going, oh, well, I'll keep this to the side, and then like I'm still Christian, and God's working on me. But then I was like, oh, he's molding and shaping me into the person that he intended me to be and created me to be. And
I'm involved in that process.
Right.
And so I think this is the complex reality of our sanctification, and Lee talked about this at Week Away, that like I can't go, okay, God, you're going to make me holy, so I'll just lie here on the couch, eat CCs and play video games until you make me holy.
CCs, that's a niche reference. Corn chips, they're
corn chips. Sorry.
you probably said Doritos.
Doritos. And so like we are called to actively engage in our own sanctification, also knowing that Jesus and the Holy Spirit is the powerhouse through which we actually achieve it.
Because they're active.
And because it's relational.
He is active.
He is active, and because it's relational. So both of those things have to be the case. So it's not the case that God's sitting there twiddling his thumbs, kind of like a teacher watching you struggle at a problem going, oh, I really wish they could get that. But neither is it just, sitting back with your feet up on your desk going, all right, God, you'll make me pass when you're ready. Like, as you're actively engaged in the process, but he is also with you and empowering you, and the Spirit is there inhabiting us, helping us to actually achieve the will that God has set before us.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying there makes me think of, we'll probably talk about it more next week as well, but we've talked about John Mark Comer before and his practicing the way kind of organisation, and they just released a couple of days ago a episode of Andy Crouch, who've mentioned a number of times before, and Jay Kim talking about AI.
Yep.
And one of the things as you said there, you kind of reminded me from that he's always active. But one of the things they pointed out was, I thought this was really well articulated. It's a very, you really have to sit down and listen to this podcast, because they're doing a great job of trying to break it down, how do followers of Jesus respond to AI. But they talk about how AI is perceived as kind of being omniscient.
Yep.
So we could see it as God. However, when we pray to God, that's not how he responds. He doesn't respond in the well-crafted paragraphs in our mind straight away when we ask him for something. And I think he also doesn't always affirm us. Yes. Which is one of the other things that the AI bots they do mention that too.
are doing is they're always affirming. They never challenge.
Right.
And so, yeah, the AI bot will always give us what we want, and God doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And he doesn't do it immediately either.
No.
Not all. Sometimes.
Not
all, not all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what it makes me think that it'd be the comparison between AI and God. And God is more powerful than AI. But the way that we think about it could lead us to think that this is how God is. And the things that we were talking about there before is it's not actually. And then I even mentioned it last week, and then it's about the relationship.
Yep.
A relationship between us and God, and then our relationships with others. But we'll break that down a little bit more next week, I think, because it was I haven't finished the podcast yet, but it was very well thought out. Andy Crouch obviously writes on technology as a Christian.
Yeah.
But
as was Joe Kim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is well done on getting them both together.
Yeah.
Guys. That was great. Talking about technology though, and someone that we have mentioned a number of times when you and I sit down is Cal Newport. We appreciate his work. You mentioned that he wrote a blog on additive and extractive technology.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can probably finish on this, but I kind of think there's a bit of relation to what we're already talking about in terms of what are we adding and what are we extracting, what is God adding and what is he extracting? Probably not extracting anything, he's always giving, I would say, because he's so loving. What are your thoughts on that originally, and then like how we can open up and think about what it means for us as Christians as well, additive and extractive.
Yeah. So the way Cal sets this up, he's riffing on another article about this lady who bought a rotary style phone with a big long cable, and she gave that to her son.
Her son, was it?
Yeah. And so he has been using this most afternoons to talk to his grandma. And,
wow. Okay.
And so the fact that what does he say? There's no scrolling, no distractions, no comparisons, no dopamine hits to chase. Instead, he just listens to stories, asks questions, and has the comfort of knowing someone who loves him is listening on the other end of the line. And so the technology, it's a technology. Phones are a technology. Wall handsets, rotary phones are a particular technology of a particular time. And so Cal talks about this as being an additive technology. Its goal is to take something you value, like talking to people you know, and make this activity easier and more accessible. And so there's additive technologies are ones that actually help you achieve the things that you want to achieve. In comparison, he talks about Instagram and other social media technologies as extractive technologies. That is, they actually take more from you than you actually want to perceive. And so he says the value proposition in social media is suddenly muddled. You might enjoy aspects of the app, the occasional diversion, the rare update from a cherished friend, but with these joys comes endless sorrows as well. The scrolling can become worryingly addictive, while the content tends to devolve into a digital slurry, equal parts mind-numbing and anxiety-inducing. And so there's so much on these apps that are actually extractive from you, taking from you, not adding to you. Yeah. And so that's the problem there.
Deforming that Crouch and Kim would talk about.
Right, yeah. So they're deforming you, yes. And another thing I was either listening to or reading this week, I can't remember, but I was talking about Mark Zuckerberg's, I don't know how recent it was, but a Senate hearing that he was part of.
Yes.
And he said on there that about 30% of what you see on your Facebook feed is from your friends and accounts you follow. The rest is stuff that they are pushing on you. And I've certainly noticed that recently, and to the fact that I barely go on Facebook now, because there's just, I can see 3 ads for every post from someone who I actually am interested in. It's not worth my time. So the only, I guess, social media that I really are a part of at the moment is Substack, which is doing what I originally valued in Facebook and Twitter, which was linking me to content that I want to read and be more informed on.
That was the appeal of Twitter to me at the start too, especially around football.
Yeah, yeah. So you've got all these really creative, interesting voices sharing their newsletters. and you can there's kind of two ways of looking at Substack. One is they're called notes. And so this is people you follow, but also others that they think you're interested in. So this is some of the algorithmic stuff coming even into Substack, which is a bit sad. But it pushes you into things that you're interested in. But I have found so far that most of that stuff is kind of like what I remember the original Facebook and Twitter to be, is that it's stuff that I'm also actually interested in. So they're other people's posts, other people's insights that are aligned with the things I already follow. But the other way of looking at it is just to look at the people you've subscribed to, and you just see their blogs and newsletters. And that's the most helpful, because these are people I've intentionally sought out, I've intentionally curated. I want to know the next thing that Katya says about German politics or history or culture. And so I look at that feed, and there's Katya's latest post. And so I can read about naked Germans. But that's stuff that I'm intentionally seeking out, as in I want to know about the culture and history and politics of Germany. And so her post is one that I can look at and subscribe to, and I can see that going. And so I think at this stage, Substack's probably on the edge. I think it's a little bit more additive than it is extractive. However, like anything, there is far more on there than I could possibly consume. And
yes,
so
that's where I'm really starting to struggle.
Yeah.
Nowadays. Yeah.
So there are my inbox gets clogged up now with there are so many voices, and so I have to do a poll now. People unsubscribe to because there's just too many. And it is becoming extractive, as in it is using up my time that I could otherwise use for other things. And then probably one more thing on this is I listened to a really interesting podcast with Ryan Holiday, who we mentioned before as well, Stoic philosopher. And he had a conversation with a friend recently. I can't remember the friend's name. I'd have to look it up, sorry. But that talking about the value of long-form podcasts. And they actually questioned how, and they've talked about, there's been this narrative in the last sort of 5 years that long-form podcasts are better than quick spurt TikTok, reels and those kinds of things. And I think that's still true. They said, however, one of the things it actually provides for us is it just because someone talks for 3 hours with Joe Rogan doesn't mean that actually what was there was of intentional substance, actual worthwhile. So it feels like it's weightier and more meaningful than a TikTok or a reel, which is probably true. But you can also just have people like us now blabbering on for an hour and a bit and get to the end and go, I don't know what I got out of that.
Yeah.
And so interestingly, again, kind of in this hour and a half conversation, part of it was about, probably listen to less podcasts and go and read more books or audio books. And so that's another thing that I'm thinking of at the moment is I've gone through and sort of unsubscribed from a few podcasts and tried to get line up a few more audiobooks. And the argument is that to get a book out is actually a much harder process. Therefore, the ideas are likely to be much more refined, and it's even slower. And so if we go back to, I think it was Cal Newport again, who talked about fast food and the equivalent of fast content. Yeah. And so it's really hard to over-consume natural foods. You kind of can't overeat on carrots and celery and fruit because the content of them is so natural. You kind of get full before you start seeing any health.
Unless you're Steve Jobs, who did the carrot-only diet and started to turn orange, apparently.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not healthy.
But again, that's not an ideal scenario.
No, we did that to my son really early on too. He really liked the little pouch foods that were sweet potato and pumpkin and carrot because they're really sweet. So we sort of talked to him and said, he's been eating a lot of carrot and sweet potato. I'm like, yeah, why? Oh, he's a bit orange. Whoops, sorry.
You put a spray tan on
him. And yeah, so when Cal Newport was talking about the equivalent of natural food versus fast food and highly processed food. Books are kind of in that early category of you can kind of, it's hard to overconsume on books because there's so much of it to get through. Podcasts are kind of in the middle, and TikTok is right at the highly processed, really unhealthy for you kind of thing. And so, that's something I'm kind of considering as well, just kind of working out the balance of all of those things.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about too, because I feel like sometimes I'm spread too thin with all the things that I want to watch and consume. I'm like, oh, that'll be really interesting. That'll be really interesting. That'll be really interesting. And you've got 4 tabs open.
Yeah. And we talked last week about not having to be on top of the latest controversy.
Yeah.
And so the thing about books is the attention economy of, this week we all care about Sydney Sweeney. And then, this week we all care about this topic. By the time a book comes out, those things have well and truly passed. So you actually only get the things that are worth lasting. Because it takes so long to get over. So I think it also helps cure that addiction to whatever the latest controversy is, because most controversies have a very short shelf life and therefore show that they're not all that important.
And I've found, and just through particular circumstances, that I think it was more. So I like to listen certain times at work to podcasts, but I try not to wear my AirPods all day.
Right.
So usually I'm listening to podcasts on YouTube, but they're hidden. It's like I minimize the screen. I can just hit play and pause on the keyboard.
Yep.
But at some point I've realized that I've opened too many tabs and I'm jumping between the different podcasts.
Oh,
and stuff.
Interesting.
So just even that is, and I think, as you're saying in the attention economy, your attention is spread thinner. And I've been thinking a lot more about, and kind of down the line of what Cal Newport talks about, of deep work and focus, and what am I actually doing that feels contributive, I think, to maybe not society, but like exactly what I'm doing. I think I have more of a desire to sit down and work on something for 2 hours and then have a break. I've read a book once that talks about that, and in particular the Anders Ericsson study about violinists, where it compares the violinists that practiced 8 hours a day non-stop compared to the violinists that practiced 2 hours with a small break and then 2 hours again, but those practices were really intense.
Oh, right.
And they were far better. The idea is that they were far better than the ones that didn't practice enough, obviously, and then also the ones that practice too much, because and uses the argument, as humans, we are designed to work intensely, very focused, without much interruption for approximately 1.5 to 2 hours, and then have a break, and then do it again. And this is the argument, for example, like you've listened to Ryan Holiday and some other writers talk about, I need 2 to 4 hours of focused work, and I know I've done a good job the entire day. And it's funny how we spread. I've just been thinking about this, of how the general idea is that you have an 8-hour workday and you're working those 8 hours. That's not true.
No.
Unless the culture is set up to do what I'm talking about in terms of the Ericsson study.
Yeah.
And to understand that. And I've talked about a company before, Basecamp. They try and get very close to that and say, we don't want to interrupt you at all. We want you to focus on work, and then we have a set time where we come together and talk about something. But then that's all we do. We don't, because I think they've found is that you are a much happier, feel more sustainable when you can work in that way, rather than constantly interrupted.
Yeah.
But even your attention is not spread as thinly as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one study I remember hearing about where people who were doing 2 projects, and they studied the difference between those who would work on a project until they got bored of it or tired of it and then switched to the other one, versus one who gave this project an hour and then stopped, switched to the other one, worked diligently on that for an hour, stopped, went back to the first one. And you would think I think most people would think, oh, no, you wouldn't want to break your flow. Once you're in a project, you might as well keep working that project until you're bored or you're tired. They found actually no, it's the second person who got the most done and felt most fulfilled was because you stopped before you got tired, and it's very hard to come back from tired, I think was the idea. And so, yeah, if you're working 2 projects, don't flip between them in terms of I'm trying to multitask. That doesn't work. But if you give one solid focus, uninterrupted focus, have a break, go to the next one, uninterrupted focus, that tends to go well as well.
Which is why I'm a big fan of time blocking.
Yes, yeah.
However, I've noticed that with time blocking, if I try and block, let's say there's 4 main things that are quite different in my life that I want to keep working on. If I try and pack them all in one day,
yes,
I feel frustrated.
Yeah.
That I don't either get to one or I haven't worked enough on those particular things.
Yeah, interesting. Yep. Yep. It's good. There you go. Life hacks. With Joel.
The life hacks. I don't know. I do enjoy trying to understand. There's one book that I would recommend for this. It's called Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal.
Oh, yes, you mentioned him before.
Yeah.
I've watched some YouTube, but I haven't read the book.
He continues to surprise me about the content he's creating. He's from England, but he's just moved to Hong Kong. I just had a baby, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, right.
But you can see he's becoming more reflective in his content as a result. And he just released a video, which is really surprising. And he talks about, because there's a lot of, he has obviously made his name by creating a company off the back of his YouTube videos. He has almost 4 million subscribers, I think, maybe even 5 million now. But it's a video he released is like, most of the time, I don't want to record the video. I know that I've made all this money and fame and everything from recording these videos. Most of the time, I think I've got to record a video now. I don't want to record the video. And so he just talks about things like, I set a timer for 5 minutes and just start and just go, I'll do it for 5 minutes and see how I go. So I enjoy that stuff more so than like how much can you squeeze, how much juice can you squeeze out of the lemon and be as productive as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And as a result, you end up being more sustainably productive in the way that Ali talks, and what actually works, and not everything is on willpower and just being disciplined. He talks about how the emotional element of procrastination, which I've learnt a lot from. Anyway, that's me going down the Ali Abdaal rabbit hole, but if you're interested in that stuff, check it out. And I think there is an element there of what we talk about in terms of being a Christian as well, is that we are made for these rhythms of life, not to be a machine. Yeah,
and a lot of these people that we, you and I both value, the Carlton Newports and Ryan Holidays and Ali Abdaals and, are not Christians as far as I can tell. But I think when you have that awareness of a good theology of these things, you can kind of see where these secular guys are unintentionally, unknowingly picking up on some of God's rhythms. Yeah. And it's always good to come back to Scripture and go, okay, does that align with, Scripture is not a productivity book. It doesn't tell us how to be a productive person in a 21st century modern office context. That's not its design. We shouldn't expect to find that in the Bible. That would be a misuse of Scripture. But this is all my constant curiosity about, you have these sociologists or business leaders or whatever it is find something that is true of the human condition, and you can often see that they're echoing things that God has already revealed about himself or humanity. And, so rhythms of life, for example, seasons, intentional rest periods. You've got things in the way that particularly God set up the Israelite society, and things there that you can kind of see, I can see what God is doing. As the designer, I talked about this in my scripture class the other day, God has designed humans. He knows how humans best work. Right. And so we will see echoes of that all throughout Scripture. And so when modern sociologists and others find things that they go, it seems that humans work best this way, it's not surprising to me that there are often echoes of what God has also revealed of humanity and of our human anthropology in the Bible. And again, not that they're trying to do the same thing, but there is an overlap there. You go, that makes sense, because God knows what he's doing. It's unsurprising. God actually, as our designer, knows how best we work. We can kind of see, some of these guys think God's thoughts after him in the way that they're saying, it seems like humans can't just slog it out 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, 24/7. That doesn't seem to work. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, no. And we can see that God knew that 3,000 years ago when he told Moses how to, the Israelite community should act. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I was just, the last thought was you were talking about a 3-hour podcast versus a TikTok, and whether is it really that much more formative and interesting. And sometimes I listen to a podcast and I go, geez, I got a lot out of that.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
And but I think that's the thing that I'm chasing, which is why I switched to so many different things. It's like, I want to get that feeling of like,
interesting.
I love, it happens quite often with a podcast that I'm listening to at the moment. It's reasonably new, called Libero, which is a football podcast.
Okay.
And I'm quite impressed with it. It's one of my favorite football journalists, but he's basically creating his own media company with, he's now got a publication. He does a couple of different, like a history podcast on football, but now he's doing one on present time as well. But he's getting just his mates who work at all different outlets to be on the podcast as well.
Yep.
And you see what the topic's about, and you're like, oh, that might be interesting. You listen to it and you go, oh, I'd learned so much more in that I didn't know before. There was another podcast by Motorsport Magazine, and I found them, and I listened to one. I'm like, oh my gosh, this has two of the best Formula One journalists on the planet on this podcast, plus two other guys who are really knowledgeable. And I went back through the entire library of them, even back into seasons that weren't even relevant, because I was getting so much out of them. So I think that's the thing that I'm chasing. It's that extra insight that I'm chasing, which I love. But you're not going to get that every time you listen to even a 3.5 hour Joe Rogan podcast or
no,
even something else like that.
And part of this extractive,
and that can be extractive.
The extractive technology part of it is that you can go chasing for those things and find that you've actually used all this time, energy, attention, focus up on things that didn't add value, or it has deformed you in ways that you didn't expect. And so, I mean, some of that is, that dopamine hit of, I found value in that podcast. And so you listen to the new podcast, your dopamine kicks in because it's expecting a reward. And I mean, it's that on micro scale that TikTok is doing and knows how to manipulate really well. Yes. Is this constant little, but the next video, I might get something in the next video, or the next one, or
the next one, or the next one. Awful after doing that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So the podcast is our podcast Destroying Our Brain on the Daily Stoic. James Altucher.
Oh, James Altucher. Yeah.
Altucher.
Yes.
I'd never heard of him.
He's a very fascinating character.
Okay, there you go. Yep. It's a fascinating conversation.
But you can look into that, and we'll put that link in the show notes. However, it's been lovely to sit down and chat with you.
Thank you.
And hear about what you've been thinking about.
Yeah, you too.
If anyone else wants to throw in what they've been thinking about, or
let us know in the comments below.
Let us know in the comments below, or send me an email, joel@shockabsorber.com.au. That would be great. And even if anything, if you are a different church, not at Soul Revival, and you're listening to something besides the Apostles' Creed and what your teaching is on, we'd love to hear that too. But for now, we'll leave it here.
Thank you, Joel.
We'll leave this out on the podcast realm and see if anyone pays attention to it.
Hopefully this has been additive, not extractive.
That's exactly right. Formative, not deformative.
That's right.
And we'll come back hopefully next week with Stu, and we can talk about the strategy of our communication service team.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Joel.
Let's finish with a one-way.
One way.
One way.